Welcome back to Resurrection Radio, the show about life. Resurrection Radio is real stories of signs, wonders, and miracles, and people coming back to life. And now, the hosts of the show, here's Renee and Dino.
Another show and another it's a beautiful day here in Minnesota today. How about down there in the deep, dark South?
Yeah, we are having blistering temperatures. It's supposed to be like 89 degrees today.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. So,
and I just want to say happy birthday to one of our producers, Johnny Clark.
Oh,
today's his birthday.
Wow, happy birthday! Golf clap, little clap. How old is he? Like 100 now, or how old is he?
I think he's like
20.
I think he's like 21. No, I'm just teasing. I think he's 31-ish or 30.
Okay.
He's young.
He's a young buck.
Yeah.
I'm the old guy. So, all right. Well, so I think we got an exciting program coming up here today. Kind of a story your story actually, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I actually have a personal resurrection story. And I got to thinking about this story last night, and I was like, because, I ask every guest at the end of the show, why do you think God chose you to be a part of this?
Yeah.
And I've never really had a desire to raise the dead.
Yeah.
This whole thing started, if any of you have listened to season 1, which you should listen to season 1 at deadraising.com, you'll find my story and how I even got involved in resurrection, if you want to say, got involved in it, just learning about it. But just God asked me to use your hands to raise the dead. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. But he kept wooing me to do that. And so I finally did. And I feel like maybe this particular moment for me was kind of like the preliminaries. I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah.
And I probably didn't pronounce that word right because I do that every now and then, but that's okay. It's my personality. Anyways, but
so you kind of, if you will, started to get into the whole resurrection when you accidentally prayed for somebody. Not that you wouldn't have prayed for them, but you kind of prayed for somebody at church or at a hospital, right?
It was at a hospital,
Yeah.
and it was. I mean, it sort of was just like fly by the seat of my pants for the moment, and it worked.
What? It worked?
Yeah. So,
wow.
The story just goes, I have a friend named Lacey, and we're going to talk to her today. But her father-in-law, Herschel, had a really bad car wreck, and he was in intensive care. So she asked me to come up and pray for him. And I was like, of course I'll come pray for him. So I'm walking into the intensive care unit, and I look to my right, and there's a really young man on life support. And my heart just like broke because I could tell this guy was probably in his 20s, probably a college student. And where I live, we're a big college town. And so just in passing, I just like declared life over him and commanded him to come off the machine in Jesus' name. And, just was like asking God to heal him. And then I went on and I prayed for Herschel. So fast forward a few days later, I go up to the hospital to pray with Herschel again, and my friend Jackie is with me. And so we pray for Herschel, and Lacey, my friend, pulls us to the side when we're done, and she said, did you see that young man, like right when you walk in and to the right? And I was like, his mother. And I tried to get her to let y'all come in there and pray for him, like lay hands on him and pray for him because they're about to take him off life support. He's completely brain dead and like literally in the next hour, he's going to die.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, Lacey, well, let's pray right now. All three of us, let's just pray right now. So we went to a quiet part of the hospital. We grabbed hands and we all just started praying. And we were all praying kind of out loud, but not like super out loud,
Yeah.
And we were just declaring life. We commanded brainwaves to come back. And, just all these, just everything we could think of. We were just like, no, this kid is not going to die.
Yeah.
And then we left. Jackie and I left. And so we'll let Lacey tell the rest of the story.
But, you said something that I've heard other people say that it's kind of interesting. In the beginning, you said, it sounded like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounded like when you went up to the hospital the first time, you really had no intent of praying for resurrection, right? I mean,
no,
right? You were going up to just to pray for somebody that was sick, right?
Yes, he was in a bad car wreck. Herschel was, but he wasn't like on his deathbed.
Yeah.
He just needed to recover.
Okay.
I mean, to tell you the truth, Herschel really was in critical condition too, and he could have died, but it was nothing like this kid that I saw.
Okay. Hi, Lacey. This is Dino, and of course you know Renee already, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're going to help.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing good. How are y'all?
We're doing really good. You've got that accent kind of like Renee does there, Lacey. So.
We're from Texas.
Yeah, I can tell that. We're excited to hear your story. Renee has kind of shared a little bit, kind of leading up to it. So I'll let Renee continue. We're anxiously waiting to hear what happens next, Renee.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. So we should pause and go to commercial, but we won't do that right now.
We don't have any.
So, Lacey, I just left off the part where you and Jackie grabbed hands and we started praying and declaring life. And then I left. And so,
awesome.
So yeah, you pick it up from there.
Well, that night, I know that whenever we had prayed in a circle, we were praying out of faith for sure. And everybody's heart was just reaching out to this family that was losing their son, and they were literally about to pull his life support if they hadn't pulled it already. And so when that night was over, we had so much going on with my father-in-law. We didn't get to touch bases with any of them that night, so I didn't know how, it ended up or what happened. Well, then I want to say it was about a week later, my husband had actually went back to the hospital to go see his dad. And when he had gotten there, he saw the mom to the young man where they had pulled his life support. And he went up to her, because we had already kind of had a friendship with her since she had been there the whole time that our father was there too. And he said, "What are you doing here? Like, how are you? I'm so sorry." And she was smiling from ear to ear. And she said, "Well, actually, that night that they pulled life support, they did pull the plug on him, and they were crying and everything." And she said, and then the heart monitor, his heart just started beating. And he actually, this boy, I want to make sure, I don't know if Raina had said this already, he was unconscious, okay, like before they pulled. There was no brain activity whatsoever. So his heart started beating, he started breathing, and he actually woke up. And so they were all standing around, and he opened his eyes, and he actually started talking to his mom. And she said, "So he's alive. Like, he's here in the hospital right now. He's up in a few floors above in recovery." And, God worked a miracle. And so it was just super awesome to hear that and be part of that somewhat because, she was with us there day in and day out. And we went through a lot of the same struggles with, the doctors that don't always have the most positive things to say. And so when you're trying to believe in a miracle, it's even harder when you've got everyone else saying, look, they're not going to make it, or if they do, they're going to be a vegetable, or, so it was tough. And getting to see those struggles and then getting to see the flip side of that, God coming through and healing this young man. And it's just such an awesome testimony. And whenever I had told Raina, I had to just, like, Herschel called me right then and there. And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, God is so cool." And so I called Raina, and I was like, "You're not going to believe this, but you're going to. Like, it's just so awesome." And I told her what happened. She's like, "We need to get his name. Like, let's go talk to him." I said, "Yes." Well, of course, because of HIPAA violations and things like that, when I tried to go back to the hospital to get some information, they wouldn't release his name But the nurse that I was talking to, I said, there was a young man here about a week ago, and basically came back to life is what it was. He was dead. Y'all pulled life support and he came back to life. And the nurse just smiled and she started, getting like emotional. And she said, that was so crazy. And I said, oh yeah? And she said, he went from like completely nothing whatsoever, no brain activity at all. And she said, and he started breathing and he woke up, he started talking to his mom and she was all excited, and I was hoping so bad that I could talk her into giving me his name, but I couldn't.
Wow. I guess, Lacey, I didn't realize that he opened his eyes and started talking. I'm like tearing up.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
like, I guess I
It's
either
amazing.
forgot that part or, wow.
Maybe I just was so excited when I told you he's alive. He's alive. But yeah, it was such an amazing testimony. And Herschel, I mean, he was teared up when he called me from talking to his mom, and so it was completely like radical. I mean, you go from no brain activity to at all. Just him breathing alone, I'm sure, was amazing, and his heart beating. But he opened his eyes, and I know he didn't say a lot. I think she said that it was like, I love you or something. He was trying to talk to his mom. And so it's pretty awesome.
Wow. This is, of course, Renee, I know that now, because you're involved in the show, what kind of effect this has had on your life, kind of pretty dramatic. And so Lacey, how has this experience changed your life or your faith, or what kind of changes have you experienced since this?
Well, I mean, for sure it was a faith booster. I think like God, he put situations in our lives to really show us like his power and his hand moving. And because we were in the hospital with a very similar situation with my father-in-law, close to death himself, and things not looking super hopeful, and like every time something awesome would happen, it's like several bad things would happen to him at the same time. So when this was going on, before I found out, this woman's testimony, it was hard because I thought, man, they've been here the exact amount of time that we have, because she came in 2 hours, she came in the same night that we did with our father.
Yeah.
And so here he is. I was thinking that he was dead. And I thought, man, like, God, help us because we want him to live, And so when we got that testimony, it just sparked that hope back up. I think that I was still cleaving to the fact that God was going to heal our father, but hearing that really boosted me up at the perfect time. I mean, people were being so negative, and even it's sad, but like even people from our church or close family members were like, well, y'all need to prepare for the worst and this and that. And I'm over here thinking, God, he's a miracle worker, and he wants us to just pray with such faith, that we can move mountains and people can come back to life. And when it does seem hopeless, like he's there. So it definitely was a faith booster.
I have a picture in my mind when, Renee, before we started, you kind of explained to me how the three of you, it was Lacey, Jackie, and you went kind of over and huddled in the corner and prayed.
Yes.
Yeah. I can just imagine that, because you're up there for Herschel, but yet you go someplace and you're praying for another person at the same. I mean, it just shows you how powerful God is. Like, hey, you know what? Not only we're gonna work on Herschel here, but we're gonna bring this young man back to life, right?
God is so awesome.
Yeah.
And just the fact that I had heard testimonies before of people coming back to life, being prayed for hundreds of miles away, that, I just think our faith was like, you know what, we don't have to lay hands on him, because the mom, she said, no, people have already been coming and praying. And so we don't want anybody else coming in and praying. And so I was like, well, and I just feel like, what would have happened if I hadn't have said, no, we're going to pray.
Let's pray.
Yeah, let's just go over here and pray. And so, wow, I'm just like,
that
for some reason I feel
obedience
shocked.
is so precious. That obedience, to me, it speaks volumes, because a lot of times we think something in our head or feel it in our heart and we don't we don't step out and we don't do it. And so this is another lesson that I've learned, to always be obedient. I mean, if you need to stop and pray for somebody right there, you don't know who's standing in the gap for that person, you know?
Yeah.
So if God tells you, go ahead and pray for them, like, let's do it. Who cares that we're in the middle of the hospital with everybody coming in and out? It doesn't matter, because our God, he wants to hear us. He wants to hear what's on our heart, and he wants us to reach out and pray for people. And I think about our kids too. Raina and Jackie were so precious, but like my children were being crazy. And my nieces, everybody, they were just a hot mess. And so they were watching us praying in a circle. And I thought about it later. I was like, you know, now that I got to tell my daughter, she was so amazed that young man had come back to life. And so she was like, Mama, was it because y'all prayed in the middle of the hospital? And I said, I believe it was, Cheyenne. I really do. And so that spoke volumes to her and increased her faith. And think about how far that's going to go. You know, I mean, it's just amazing what God can do. It's like a ripple effect, you know, just from some person's obedience. And Raina, she's just been so obedient to the Lord, and I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you, Lacey. I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, we were praying, and the kids, oh, I love you too. Yeah.
You know, there's something else.
Lacey's a lifetime friend.
Something else I heard too that I think really is something to make note of too is things don't have to be perfect, or you don't have to be in a perfect environment to pray, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's so right.
I think there's a lot of people that think, well, I remember some mission trips thinking, okay, we got to do this right. It's like, no, we don't have to do it right, because God will do it right.
Or even, I think even these days, people are almost afraid to pray in public. You know, like they've got to go to a different room or go hide or something like that of that nature, afraid to offend someone. We need to stand up as Christians, you know, and just like I said, with the obedience, it falls back to being obedient. Who cares where you're at? Who cares who's around? You know, if you need to pray, go ahead and pray. Let it out, like, to the Lord, because he's going to honor that regardless.
Well, Lacey, I asked this question to everybody on our show, and that is, why do you think God used you and put you into this situation to help this young man come back to life?
I probably couldn't have answered that like a few weeks ago. But I think now, whenever I really just think back on it, for one, like I had said, you know, my faith was really weak at that point, and I've had a lot of moments in my life where I prayed expecting things and it didn't take place. So therefore, you know, my carnal mind sort of has taken over, like, well, can God really do miracles and things like that? But then I would always snap out of it and say, no, like, I know God is a big, great God, and he wants to give us the desires of our heart. He wants to heal people. He wants to show us that he does still do miracles and things like that. So I really believe it was a personal experience for me specifically, because I needed that. I needed to see it. I needed to hear it. I needed to be part of it and feel it, because God has a greater calling on all of our lives. And I think it's moments like that where God's showing you, go ahead and step forward in faith, because this is what I'm showing you. And look what I can do. Look what I did. I want you to step forward now in what I was calling you to do. And so for me, it personally was just like a step forward. It really was. And I'm forever grateful, because like you said, if you wouldn't have said, okay, well, let's just pray. I mean, I may have thought it in my head and in my heart, but I didn't take that initiative. And so it just, on all different levels, like, I'm just excited on what God's going to continue to do through my life. And I'm super excited for this family. And I really hope that they'll hear, you know, this testimony on the radio and reach out to us, because I would love to just visit with them.
Yeah, everybody listening today, we need to join together and pray that we will run into this young man and maybe have him on the show. Yeah. That would be great.
I know for a fact that they're from Amarillo. The accident took place in Amarillo. And so if that tells anybody anything.
That's awesome. Well, Lacey, thank you so much for your time, and just thank you for being willing to share your part, because it was powerful, very powerful today.
Well, thank you very much for asking me, and I so appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be in touch, okay?
Okay, y'all have a good one.
Yep.
You too.
Bye-bye. Wow. That's an amazing, amazing testimony, Renee. This is, I was like, we should just
Started
keep
tearing
going.
up.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I was thinking we should just keep going. I think there's so much in that story. I made another note of the, I really think the one thing that really, 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 for me, obviously we all have our different things that we hear sometimes or whatever, but for me, it's like just thinking about what was going on. You guys were there for somebody else, but yet there was time to pray for somebody else also, that's
Yes.
I think it's a big deal, because sometimes we get so wrapped up in our own pain and our own tough situations that we forget that there might be somebody across the hall that's dying,
Yeah.
So
Some of the best advice I've ever received is one of my mentors once. Her name's Londa.
mm-hmm.
She said, when you're going through something that's hard, pray for somebody who's going through the same thing. Stop praying for yourself and pray for that other person. She said every time she does that, she gets some kind of breakthrough.
Wow.
So
That's a good word. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, gosh, I don't know how we're going to be able to top this show. This is good.
no, this was good.
This is good. We'll have to have Lacey on again and yeah.
She can tell Herschel's story. I mean, Herschel's story is
Well, yeah. I mean,
amazing.
There's another story there, right?
Yeah, because honestly, like I said earlier, he could have died.
Yeah.
I mean, but his was more of a process. And one of the things the Lord told me whenever we were praying, I went up there like 3 times to pray for Herschel. And the Lord told me, give him time to heal, not just physically, but emotionally. So the Lord was doing a deep work in him. And so it was a process. And Herschel is alive today. He's still in recovery. And this happened, goodness, a couple of months ago.
Okay.
And so,
all right.
yeah, that's a whole new story that, we'll definitely have Lacey back.
You've been listening to Resurrection Radio, real stories of signs, wonders, and miracles, and people coming back to life. Join Renee and Dino again for the next episode of Resurrection Radio, or log on to www.renee4321media.com to listen to more programming. That's www.renee4321media.com. Thanks again for listening.